Please help me welcome Brittany Matiko with Communication Styles, or Brittany.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I met my best friend in high school when I was 16 years old. And to be honest, we didn't like each other when we first met. I thought she was loud and obnoxious and just wanting attention. And she thought I was quiet, reserved, and slightly unfriendly. But as we got to know each other more and more, we realized that we were completely wrong about each other, that it was just a communication problem when we first met. Communication is a very important part of friendship. And there are different styles of communication that we need to do when we're in those friendship relationships. And I'm just going to share with you the three different types of communication styles that are in friendship. The first is initiating. That's when you're first enthusiastic and you're getting to know people and you're sociable. It's the foundation of friendship. It's what are the building blocks for your friendship. And without initiating, you won't meet anyone. I had a friend named Fernando in university, and at the beginning of every year, he would come to me and he'd say, Brittany, I need you to make me some friends. So I would go out and I'd meet new people and introduce him to them. See, people sometimes think that meeting people and initiating is some special skill or talent, when in reality, it is something that's learned. The more you meet people, the better you get at talking to them. And as we're in this pandemic situation, it is more difficult to be good at initiating and meeting people. But it's important to do so. And even though we don't have the opportunity to initiate conversations with people that we don't know, we can initiate conversations with people that we used to know. The second type of communication is supportive. They're the type of people, particularly that utilize it the most, that are the listeners, the patient people, the ones that are just wanting to help others. They're the ones that aren't just Facebook friends. They're the ones that actually actively send you a text, give you a call. They're the friends that use this communication type to build a stronger relationship on the initial foundation. Ed Cunningham said, friends are the rare people who ask how we are and then wait a moment to actually find out. And that's the type of communication that supportive is. The people that utilize this frequently are the ones that care. The third type of communication that you can use in friendship is being direct. I'm a very direct individual. I will tell you how it is. And they're also the most honest type. They will tell you the truth. You can trust what they tell you is accurate. And when you're having a disagreement with someone who's using the direct technique and they're actually a good friend of yours, it's not necessarily a disagreement, but rather it turns into a conversation. Now, it's important to recognize that the direct type of communication does not work on all your friends. You have to be careful who you use this direct technique with. I have a friend who I thought I was particularly close with, and so I told her what I thought. She did not appreciate it. However, if you have that relationship with someone to tell them what you actually think, because your opinion matters, you can even build a stronger relationship. And using directness doesn't mean you're being rude. You can be direct and kind. Communication is extremely important in friendship. Without communication, friendship wouldn't exist. It would simply be a meeting of acquaintances. And as we're taking this opportunity to learn more about friendship, I ask you to remember that communication is important and to step out of your comfort zone of the communication style that you tend to use the most. Because the strongest communication and the strongest friendship utilizes all. The strongest friendship uses all types of communication styles. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, thank you. This just feels very strange not to have evaluations and things like that. If you feel like you have something you would like to share with Brittany, just go in the chat and select her name and then tell her what you thought, or if there was something you really liked, that would be much appreciated. Now for the big speech, the one that's going to be 20 minutes. We are presentation mastery, getting ready for our DTM. I'm not sure what Melissa's goals are. Melissa is doing the final speech on preparing to speak professionally, and her passions include coaching, coaching people, and coaching animals. She's had the honor of working with incredible athletes from all walks of life, from children to adults, recreational focus to high performance athletes. And then she's got in brackets here, 5 who were selected to compete internationally representing Canada in the life-saving sport. Since then, Melissa has become passionately involved in assisting her coaching clients to pursue their dreams without losing control of their lives. Through simple and deliberate action. Tonight, Melissa will be sharing her mindset tips around going from a handful of friends to over 100. Okay. There we go.
Three out of 5 Americans are lonely. This statistic was based on data gathered by Cigna in 2019. These are pre-pandemic numbers. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Do you ever find yourself feeling lonely? Have you found yourself feeling more lonely with the restrictions of the pandemic and questioning if you even have friends anymore? This evening, I'm going to share with you the 3 questions that have significantly shifted my friendships. It's a journey that I began a few years ago, and it has made it so that through the pandemic, I can honestly say that my relationships have gotten stronger, and I haven't really felt like I was lonely or like I didn't have any friends. Question number 1. What is my definition of a friend? I was sitting on my bed. I had tears streaming down my cheeks. And my husband was asking me what was wrong. I said, I feel like I have no friends. He looked at me with this questioning look, as though he couldn't quite believe what I was saying. You know, the kind of look that a wife can only get from a loving husband when she's being slightly ridiculous and maybe a little bit overly dramatic. He started to list off all of the people who, from his perspective, would put me on their list of friends. As he was giving me the list, I started to realize that most of these people I wouldn't have put on my list. But when he mentioned their name, I would class them as my friends. It made me dig into what do I even think a friend is? For interest's sake, let's look at the 2017 Melissa Matiko version of what a friend is. A few years ago, my definition of a friend would have been someone who, when I walk away from spending time with them, I am energized. You know, the type of energy that you get when the sun starts to come out and the temperature outside goes from -40 to +5. That type of energy. After you spend time with them, you're so excited and you're enthusiastic and you're ready to take on the world because you hung out with your friend. Another characteristic would have been a person who stays in contact with me, someone who will randomly reach out to me via email or text or phone call or Facebook message, but it's someone who puts an effort forth to stay in contact with me. Another qualification criteria that I realized I had is that I wanted a friend to me was someone who, after spending time apart, when we got back together, even if our time apart had been days or weeks or months or years in some cases, when you get back together, you're just able to pick up exactly where you left off. As I started to pay attention to this, I realized that my definition of friends was a lot more like qualification criteria than actually just having a friendship. Being the nerd that I am, I decided to check with the dictionary and get the real definition of friends. If you look at my definition of friends versus dictionary.com's definition of friends, it's significantly less complicated. All it takes is being attached to someone else by feelings. That's kind of easy for me. You see, I love people. Lots and lots of people. And there are a lot of people who've given me assistance or helped me out. And there's an even bigger group of people that I'm on good terms with, at least that I'm aware of. By taking a look at my definition of a friend, I started to realize that I didn't only have a handful of friends. I had many, many friends, and that I was actually doing a disservice to my friends to have these qualification criteria and expectation of what they had to do in order to be my friend. Question number 2. What energy am I bringing to this friendship? A few years ago, I read a book called Everything Your Coach Never Told You Because You're a Girl. It was written by Dan Blank. He's a women's soccer coach and primarily focuses on coaching women in college. One of the exercises that he does at the beginning of every single season with his teams is he makes them create 3 lists. The first list is things I can control. The second list, things over which I have no control. And the third, things that I can influence. As I was reading the book, I actually sat down and I made the list. I was really confused as to where to actually put my friendships, because saying that I could control my friendships felt a little sketchy and a little bit like I didn't actually want that title of controlling my friends. It also didn't feel responsible to say that I have absolutely no control over my relationships. So my friendships ended up on the things I can influence list. At that point, I didn't even really realize what being able to influence my friendships looked like. Are you aware of how you influence your friendships? As I started to pay attention, I realized that I could influence my interactions with my friends, not in a controlling way, but in a shaping way. If I was positive and happy when I was interacting with my friends, the majority of the time we had positive and happy interactions. If I went into an interaction grumpy, I could bring the whole thing down just by the energy that I brought into the conversation and into the time together. I started to realize that I really have a lot of influence around my friends and around the energy inside our connections and inside our relationships. Do you have any of those friends? The friends that every time you talk to them, you walk away feeling as though you have just provided a space for them to dump everything negative that's going on in their lives? You know, they complain about the weather. They complain about their car not working. Did you know that in those moments, you can actually bring out the positive by asking questions like, what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? By asking questions like that, you can influence the relationships. It's often said that people will not remember what you say, they'll remember how you say it, or the way that you make them feel. You can influence the way that people feel about your friendship by asking them questions that make them happy and make them feel special. Let's go on to question number 3. This one was one of the toughest questions for me to come to terms with. What parts of me am I sharing with my friends? Going back to me sitting on the bed, crying, and my husband giving me a list of all of the people who he thought would class me as their friend, I started to realize that part of why I didn't really feel like people were my friends versus they felt like I was their friend was because I wasn't actually willing to let them get to know me. I was reading Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. And in that book, she says, courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. Through reading her book, I came to the realization that it wasn't that people didn't want to know me. It was that I wasn't willing to let people get to know me beyond the surface level. That's how we don't feel lonely. In order to not feel lonely, we need to really, truly feel connected to people. In order to feel truly connected to people, we have to let them see who we really are. Earlier, Brittany talked about the different communication types. And the one where they're listeners, I can relate to that. I love asking questions. I love getting to know people. I love getting to understand people and where they're coming from and why they do what they do. Kind of a nerd like that. being a nerd like that was very much starting to negatively impact my relationships. I felt like people didn't know me. But because I was willing to ask questions and create a safe space for people to share what they were struggling with, they classed me as one of their closest friends. I asked questions in order to avoid talking about me. I would lead people to share their struggles, create a safe space for them to talk through their problems and for them to talk through what they were going through, so that I didn't have to share me. So that I could present to my friends the real life version of what we often see on social media today. A curated, beautiful picture where everything is great, where we're happy, where we're bubbly, where we're positive, where we're encouraging, but you don't really see the true stuff that's going on behind it. When I came to this realization, I was a little bit horrified. I had a lot of pride. I was proud of myself for having the deep connections that I felt like I had with people. I was proud of how I could get information, not in a gleaning information way, but that I was able to make people feel like they were so safe, that they were so cared for, that they were willing to share some of their biggest struggles, and that they were willing to include me in their process of getting through them. Being willing to do that, but not willing to then provide that same opportunity to my friends to let them help me through my struggles, meant that we kind of had a one-way relationship. So I challenged myself. I decided that I was going to, rather than bottling up all of the things that I was struggling with, or the things that were weighing on my head and my heart, I decided that I would start to test the waters. My biggest fear was going from 0 to 60 and going from not sharing anything to being one of those people, that overshare. The ones that you run into at the grocery store. Next thing you know, you have their entire life story. I was so afraid of becoming one of those people, of making my friends feel awkward because I was sharing information that they didn't really want. So I started to test the water. I went out for coffee one day with my best friend, and I was brave. I shared with her the thing that had been eating away at me for months. And she looked at me and she said, "Wow, we've never talked about this before." I said, no, we haven't. I then brought her up to speed on where I was at, and she was amazing. She said, "I'm not going to ask you questions the way that you ask questions, because I don't want to feel like I'm prying." And to me, from her perspective, she felt like if she was asking the questions that I ask, she was prying. And so it was important for me to volunteer the information to her to take our relationship to the next level. A few years later, I can say that I have a few really, really great friends who I feel like really know me now. They know what I'm struggling with. They know where I'm at, and they have the ability to call me on when my head is just being a little bit too hard on me. Because of the bravery and being aware and actually letting people see me, I've been able to make it through a pandemic and still have these amazing connections. It's a little bit different now. We have to use Zoom and we have to use the telephone more versus being able to be in person. One of the most amazing things for the pandemic that has come out of it for me is the fact that two of my best friends from high school and I actually talk to each other once a week. We've never taken the time to actually communicate with each other that consistently. And now we have a standing Tuesday night date night where all three of us get together on a Facebook call and we're keeping in touch. Sometimes we just digress to playing with the filters because there isn't really a lot to catch each other up on when we're all locked in our houses. But the connection that we have makes me feel as though I do have friends. So if you want to stay friends through a pandemic, I would challenge you to look at these three questions. What is your definition of a friend? Are you like I was, where you have this qualification criteria rather than keeping it simple and just being, if it's someone that you like, that you want to spend time with, they can be your friend. What energy are you bringing into the friendship? Are you influencing your relationships and your friendships in a positive way? And what parts of you are you willing to share with your friends? Please don't misunderstand me and make it like you have to share everything with your friends. I'm talking about having a select few friends that you share even the most scary parts. Because when you share the most scary parts, there's something magical that happens and they can become just a little bit less scary. A thought that I want to leave you with is never let your best friends go lonely. Keep disturbing them. If I was to take a poll of your friends, would 3 out of 5 of them report that they feel lonely because no one has been in touch with them? Or do you want to take it upon yourself to be the friend that disturbs them in a good way so that they are one of the 2 of 5 who do not feel lonely? That is my challenge. Make your friends the 2 of 5 who don't feel lonely because you keep disturbing them. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you.